So good morning, everybody. Before we actually move into the sprint review, I just wanted to, go back to the presentation we did just for a couple of minutes. It was a fantastic presentation by everybody. So once again, thank you. I see the progress we are making as a team. Thank you for the efforts you're putting in. I just wanted to make, because we didn't have enough time because Shola was coming on, I just wanted to make remarks about the slide itself. Okay. Now, when you're making presentations, as much as possible, use visuals, mixture of both, visuals and text, so that it's easy for people to see, it is easy for people to read. Make your fonts, big enough. Don't make it too small, because what will happen if your slides are predominantly text and too close to each other and small is that even you will struggle. Even you, the owner of the information, the person who put the information together, you will struggle during the presentation. So I just thought I'll make some slides where, made a good use of that whole idea of, visuals and spacing things out. Some didn't. So just for you to note that going forward, when you're doing your presentations, always think, are my text too small? Have I used enough visuals? Would this be easy for my audience to read? Would it also even be easy for me to follow in my presentation? So you want to make it easy for yourself. Don't make life difficult for yourself. It's better to have 20 slides that are, I know I restricted the number of slides, but it is better to have 20 slides that are easy to go through quickly than to have 5 slides that are difficult to use. I hope that makes sense. It's better to have more slides that are easy to go through very quickly than to try and squeeze so much into your slides. Bear that in mind. So always try to find that balance. But other than that, fantastic presentation overall. So thank you very much. Now, talking about certification, we are at a point now where I really think people should now start thinking about taking their Scrum Master certification so that that can go on your CV and you can start putting your CVs out there for possible contact. I think we're at that point now. I'm confident once you take once you have access to the portal, it will just be revision for you because there's nothing there they want to talk about that we haven't already covered, okay? So you will pass it. There's nothing to be afraid of. You will pass it. I can guarantee you that. So I want you to start thinking about that. So other than that, let us kick off with our sprint review. And then once we're done with the sprint review, we will continue with DevOps, okay? Because like I said, you can be anywhere. So it's very important that we start understanding all these approaches to work. So Dodie, if you're ready, yourself and Henry, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Henry, okay. Henry goes first.
Okay, so just let me know when you want me to change the slide.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so over to you, Henry.
Good morning, everyone. You're welcome to our sprint review for the LBU Digital Transformation Project for Sprint 4. The goal of this sprint was to create a secure payment portal for students to pay their fees. Next slide, please. So the name of our team, it's Phonics, and our product owner is Grace Chaba. The Scrum Master is Henry Nabaze, and the sprint was Sprint 4. Next slide. So the goal of this sprint was to create a secure and convenient payment platform where students can pay their fees and get an immediate update on their account information, payments, prospective students, tuition fee calculator, accommodation fees, and online payments and bank account. Please, next slide. So at the beginning of the sprint, we committed to 43 story points, and the good news was that we were able to complete all our story points. I think everyone was able to finish up their what they call it, their story points. Please, next slide. Okay, so this to take us further in the sprint demo, I'll call on Dodie to just take us through all we're able to achieve in this sprint. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. I'll be presenting what we were able to achieve this past sprint for the past 2 weeks. Thank you. Next slide, please. So you notice that we now have on the landing page payments. a very important one. Everybody loves to see how the money can come in. So we've included payments, and I'm sure we're all happy about that. So inclusive of the homepage, about us, international students, we now have payments. Next slide, please. So if you click on the payment icon, you get a drop down, and then you have the students or whoever is searching the website would have the option of clicking on prospective students, returning students, tuition, which is usually the most important one everyone wants to know about when they're searching for university, the tuition fee calculator, accommodation fees, and everything to do with payment on the website. Next slide, please. Now, tuition is usually the first one. Students that are trying to see how much, which of the universities they can afford would want to look at, even parents when looking for a university for their children. So when they click on the tuition, they come onto the LBU site, and there's the option for prospective students, which would be students in whatever, looking for whatever course. So once they click on the prospective students, they'll have the option of searching through the courses they're doing, and then how long for. If it's a graduate student, it's definitely a shorter time frame, so maybe 2 years, and then they work that out with the tuition fee calculator. If it's a science student, it tends to be more expensive than if it's, for instance, an art student. And you might want to see how you can make these payments either in installments or a lump sum. So the tuition fee calculator works that out real quick once you click on that button. So if you're trying to decide on a course of study, you click on that to help you weigh how much each of the different courses that seem to be on maybe in the same faculty would cost you. And then you can take a decision right off the bat, which of the courses to pursue in terms of the tuition fees and what comes up on the fee calculator. Next slide, please. Another interesting option would be accommodation fees, particularly for the international students. And then there's the option to view, depending on the type of package that is available in the university, be it a single one-room accommodation or a double room. And there's the option of 3-man rooms, and the rooms that can be occupied by a maximum of 4 students. So they click through, if they get through to the student accommodation, there's the option of the fees for each of those types of rooms, and then depending on the size as well. Some 1-room apartments can be as large as a 4-room apartment, so it depends. Final year students would probably prefer that, and then they also get to check out the fees alongside the tuition to do on the fee calculator option. Next slide, please. And so there's financial aid as well. Usually this would come up on the option for courses. And if you are pursuing a particular course, you'd see the options for if you have gotten financial aid or want financial aid, and that is also worked out on the fee calculator option. Next slide, please. And then there's the scholarship. Most students, particularly with the times we're in, are hopeful of a scholarship. So most likely this will draw their attention. So once they get to the drop down on payments, this option will definitely come up. So we're hoping that having seen what we've done so far, you might have a few questions for us or suggestions of what you might want, or you're happy with what we've done so far. Thank you. I think that's it.
Wow.
Yes.
That looks good. Product owner, any questions?
Yes, definitely. It's payments. So while I appreciate your information on fees and that sort of thing, I expected to see a proper payment portal whereby you can, you talk through the access to actually pay your fee. and then the security options that you will put in place for that process. So I expected that, but I didn't see it.
If we go back to
It's-
the first slide, Miss Mary,
yeah, it's there.
please just go back to, yes. Okay,
Yeah.
so under the payments, we have different ways you can pay. You can pay directly from your debit or savings account. Just click on this icon here, or you could pay using a debit card or credit card. We provided different options for them to pay. And then since we intend to capture young students, we also put in our platform the Apple or the Google Pay. So we have all the options here. Or you could pay via a secured bank draft or money order and all that. So we have all that in our platform. And for you to pay with the check or money order, you can just click in. You can press this button. You could click here, and then you get a unique identifier, which you can then attach to your check or your money order and mail it in. So we have different options to pay, and our system is very secure because we have put in very high security measures in place. Thank you.
Grace, are you happy with that?
Yeah, I have to be.
Okay. Okay, I like what has happened here because I saw these slides yesterday. I saw these slides yesterday and I felt it, I mean, it's a training environment, fine. But I felt there could have been more in terms of the portal itself, the payment portal itself. That was also what I felt, okay? But no problem. Now, I like what has happened here.
I have a question.
Just a moment, Mr. T. I like what has happened here. You people have surprised the product owner at this review. That is what you have done. You have surprised the product owner because you see, you did not share this review with the product owner before this product review. It's a sprint review.
Yeah.
You understand? So there were no, it's good it happened. So we have learned now. It's good it happened. Yeah. So you cannot surprise the product
owner. Yeah.
You cannot. So even if the product owner had seen this slide maybe on Monday, and then by Thursday there was something different, you will inform the product owner again. Send it to her or him. Let them see. The product owner must not be surprised at it. The product owner must already have seen what is being demoed. So I believe we have learned something today because what she raised here, she would have raised it before now.
Yeah.
Okay? So we've learned something. But other than that, thank you so much for the effort. Thank you, everybody. So far, so good. Product owner, we've learned something from this. So we know that the product owner should not be surprised. The developers too, the master.
I was actually going to say that I wasn't expecting the product owner to start asking the question. No, to start asking his team questions at the sprint review. I think it should have been the stakeholders.
That is the whole point, because now they've surprised the product owner because the product owner didn't have the, a preview of what was in reality this shouldn't happen, but it has happened and now we have learned from it. Yeah. Okay, fantastic. So well done, guys. So my question here now is, do we want to do another sprint or are we happy with what we've done so far? Should we continue with more sprints or should we stop here? Because I believe we get it now. Do we get it?
I think we should stop, but that's me.
Yeah, I think we've learned what we need to learn from a simulation of what a sprint cycle looks like. I feel so. Yeah. Is everyone in agreement?
Yes, I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement too. But Mary, I hope the Quick Scrum portal, so to say, will still be available to us to play around with.
It will be available to play around with until my next students come along. My next students will need it from November, I think. So it will be available for you until November. But I tell you what is going to happen. You need to. This is my advice to everybody. If you are serious about being a Scrum Master, download Jira. Go for there's a free option for Jira. I don't know how long for.
Mary, can I just come in here?
Yes.
I thought you were going to go through Jira and conference.
That's what I'm saying.
Of the course. Okay.
That's what I'm saying. Download Jira and then I can use, because you see, for you to really learn how to use Jira, you have to use it. That is the truth.
Yeah.
For you to really learn how to use a tool, you must have access to the tool and play around with that tool.
Yeah.
When I started my Agile journey, I subscribed to Jira. I was paying £10 a month, I think. something like that. I was paying £10 a month.
They're actually asking me to pay $5 or something because I've downloaded it
which is
long
nothing.
ago.
So subscribe to Jira and just keep paying yourself and just keep using it. And then I will now teach you how to use it. I'm not saying I won't teach you, but have a subscription for Jira that belongs to you.
Okay.
So that you can begin to play around with it. Okay. Go online. First of all, subscribe to the free one. Okay, subscribe to the free one. Anyone can subscribe to the free one. Then I can use that free one to teach everybody how to use it. And then you have your own subscription. Let me tell you something. If you can use one, you can use it all. That is the truth. If you can use any, once you have used any Agile tool, you can use anyone. And I'm going to go through Confluence and Agile with everybody. I'm going to subscribe to it for a month and use it to teach you guys too. I don't mind doing that. Because I really want you to understand how to use Jira and Confluence. It is very important.
Thank you
It's
very
very,
much.
very important. But once you can use one, you can use all. But even after me teaching you, I need you to subscribe to it to keep using it. Keep using it. Yeah.
Is there a particular link you'd like us to use to access this one you're recommending?
Jira?
Yes.
Just go online. I'll share it with you. It's called Atlassian. Just go online. I'll share it with you. Yeah. Maybe next weekend. Yeah. But let us finish DevOps. Let us wrap up.
For Atlassian to the
Atlassian, just Atlassian.com, I think it's called. So let us finish DevOps. Once we are done with DevOps, I will now look at Kanban. Okay. I will now look at Kanban and then we'll wrap up. As we wrap up, I'm going to share with you the anti-patterns document and the Scrum Master interview questions. So what will now happen from there is that you are now coming back to me with questions. If you get an interview, from there on, what then happens is one-to-one session. Do you get it? That is what will now happen from there on. We should be wrapping this up maybe by, where are we now? By end of October, we should be wrapping up this training by end of October. So from end of October onwards, the chances are it's not going to be, what I'm hoping will now happen is you are getting interviews. And once you get interviewed, it now becomes a one-to-one engagement. So we are wrapping up our group engagement, so to speak, and then moving on to the one-to-one session. And for that one-to-one session, it's not even so much interview alone. It is also, Mary, I was revising, and there's this part that I don't quite get, and then I explain it to you, okay? It is also about you revising, you needing clarity, and you coming back to me, as well as, oh, Mary, this is the job spec for a job I've just been called for to interview for, and then I prep with you. I prep with you based on the specification of that job interview. We'll look at the anti-patterns, we'll look at the spec, we'll look at the possible questions that they might be asking you and get you to attend those interviews. That is how we're going to journey on from end of October. I hope that makes sense, and I hope it's okay. Because you will now need that one-to-one session. So let me conserve my energy for those one-to-one sessions. And those sessions are more important now. You have all the information. By end of October, we would have done Kanban, we would have touched on some revision, look at some other areas that may not be so clear. And once you have an interview, we now zoom in on those job specs and really go for that one-to-one, sessions to get you out there and get the job. So that's it. So let me come out of here, share my own slides. Any questions at all with what I've just said? Oops, what did I do? Any questions, any concerns? What am I doing? Let me stop this. So, yes. So let's continue with DevOps. Okay. Share my screen again. Okay, so can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So we'll continue with DevOps today, and then tomorrow we'll continue with our presentations, okay? So DevOps part 4. Now, what are the building blocks of DevOps? Agile, Lean, and ITIL. ITIL is about information technology libraries, and it's about service management. ITIL is about, you already know about Agile and Lean to some extent, but I'm going to elaborate on Lean today. ITIL is about information service management. I mean, when you start talking about service desk, when you start talking about infrastructure, when you start talking about how everything fits together, that is IT services management, okay? When there's going to be an outage, you know, all those management that goes around it, that is what ITIL is all about. And that is a career on its own. ITIL is a career on its own, okay? It is also quite document and, you know, it's heavy. It's very heavy on documentation. And, you know, it is something that was developed by the UK government as well. And just like Prince 2. And the other parts of the world, they adopted it because it was, you know, very well done and very well structured. And it really helped in the 80s and 90s. It really, really helped. But now, with things changing and with DevOps, it just like Prince 2 was now looking quite heavy, they are also now adapting ITIL, okay, for the agile environment and making it, you know, less of a heavy documentation. So something that you needed to read that was like 2,000 pages long, they are now trying to compress it to a few, you know, important aspect that is necessary, given that.
That is so fantastic. That is so fantastic.
Say that again.
I said, that is so fantastic.
Yes.
ITIL was so heavy.
Very heavy. Very, very heavy, Sylvia. Yeah. So they are now trying to minimize it to easy to follow, because you see the environment has changed. And this is where the agile mindset comes in. Franca?
It's still, well, it needs to be refined definitely because it's still heavy.
That's what I'm saying, that they've started working on it. They are not there yet, but there's a smaller version of it now that has taken into account the agile way of working and DevOps, you know, the advancement of DevOps. So having taken all of that in, they are refining it. Now it's all work in progress, okay? So these are the building blocks of DevOps, okay? Agile, Lean, and ITIL, okay? Now we already know about Agile. We know about the manifesto, the principles. We know it's an iterative approach to development. We know it's about getting our products and services out to the market. We know it is people and value driven. We know it is an environment that requires psychological safety. Now, if you look at all of this, it is in line with the DevOps philosophies as well. DevOps also is about psychological safety. DevOps is about leveraging iterative development, okay? DevOps is about the values and principles also. So they are very, very aligned, okay? Lean. Now let's focus a little bit more on Lean. I know we've talked about Lean here and there, but let's look at it in a little more detail. We talked about Lean when we're talking about the value stream, okay? Now the Lean process is a method for creating a more efficient and effective business by eliminating wasteful practices and improving efficiency. This takes us back to the bakery, okay? We have a bakery. We start here, we finish here by serving the customer, okay? All the processes involved in serving that customer, is it efficient? Is there waste in the system? And when we talk about waste in a bakery, it's not just about flour wasting. It's not just about eggs being wasted. It is also about waiting. Because you see, if I'm a staff in a bakery and I'm waiting for something to come to my own part of the process, I'm waiting. Remember, I'm being paid to be here. I'm a paid staff of that bakery. So when you think of waste in a bakery's environment only as, okay, when flour is wasted, when egg is wasted, when sugar is wasted, you have not captured all the possible waste. Wasting time is waste. Waiting is waste. So like I just said, as a person next in line for a process, if I have to wait too long for whatever it is to come to me. So take, for example, I'm waiting for the cupcakes. I'm waiting for the cupcakes to come to me so I can put the icing on it. If I have to wait too long, then there's something wrong with our value stream. We need to investigate. Why does Mary have to wait 2 hours before she can ice the cake? Is it that our cooling system is not working fast enough? Is it that our machinery is slow? Do we need extra machines? What do we need to prevent Mary from waiting 2 hours in order for her to do her part of that value stream? Okay, that is how we need to think. More widely referred to as lean, the lean process focuses on improving products and services based on what customers want and value. We are not just improving for the sake of improving, okay? And this is where outcomes and impacts matter. Now, in a development environment, we talk about working tested software. The Agile Manifesto talks about working software being the measure of progress. Yes, there's no doubt about that. But now that we are talking about DevOps also, development and operations working together, we must be asking ourselves, how quickly or have we put in place, a process that ensures we get feedback from the customers quickly so that we can act on the feedback from the customer? So what are the outcomes, we are getting out there? If we make our cake and we deliver our cake, we want people to eat it and enjoy it. We don't want people to eat it and see that there was stone in it or there was a bug in it or whatever the case may be. And we want more customers to come. That could be part of the impact you are making, because people are enjoying our cake. Their behavior, it is affecting their behavior. How is it affecting their behavior? They are buying more and they are telling their friends and family. And because they are buying more of our cakes and telling their friends and family, more customers are coming. If you look at it in other more important environments, it could be that a medical, a service is being, delivered, or a new software is being delivered that is actually impacting the lives of people. If you look at it from a transportation point of view, if we put new traffic lights in place, what are we trying to do? We are trying to change people's behavior, okay? By putting traffic lights in place, by changing people's behavior, maybe it means there will be less accidents, okay? That's the kind of impact. That is how we need to think as a Scrum Master in this environment, so that you can help the team have that kind of mindset of, it's not just about delivering features. It's about making sure that the features we are delivering is giving us the right outcome and ultimately making the impacts that we want it to make. The core idea is to maximize customer value. That is it. And when we maximize customer value, it's a win-win situation for the organization as well. And we want to do that by minimizing waste. Simply, lean means creating more value for customers with fewer resources. I hope that makes sense. We want to create value. But you see, I'm sure you've heard so many times when organizations will say, we are bringing in consultants to come and help us, investigate our value stream. Our cost is too high. Our cost is too high. We want to reduce costs. And sometimes that cost reduction may lead to people losing their jobs. We've seen all of that happen in the past, okay? So as much as possible, we want to streamline our value stream to minimize waste. We want to deliver more value with fewer resources. That is the goal of your value stream investigation. That is the goal of Lean, okay? And we will come back to the Toyota and the Ford story as I move further down my slide. The answer is not always the need for more people or new tools. You may investigate your value stream. It may or may not need a new employee, a new worker to be employed. You may or may not need new tools. It depends. You may or may not. You may need new tools. You may not. You may need more people. You may not. You may even need to get rid of people, okay? What matters is that you have investigated the value stream to look at what adds value and what does not add value. That is all. We are now trying to also optimize that value stream. How can we optimize the value stream to add value? Every context will be different, but you want to know what you are looking for regardless of the context. We want to deliver more with fewer resources. We want to minimize waste in the system, and that waste could be wastage of materials, it could be waste of time, it could be waiting, whatever it is, okay? So it's not always that, we need more people, we need more tools. No. It could be that you have the tools, but you are not using it efficiently. It could be that you have the people, but you are not leveraging your people. And that is the biggest waste you can have. That is the biggest waste you can have. You have people, intelligent people, creative people, but you are not using them properly. So as an agilist, this is what you are coming into organizations to look out for. Now, lean software development can be summarized in 7 steps. It says here, eliminating waste, amplifying learning. Remember, the learning comes from the feedback loop, deferring commitment. We'll see what that means in a minute. Early delivery cycle, our 2-week cycle, so we can deliver early. Empowering the team. We don't want to micromanage the team. We want to build with integrity. Our work should be our bond, and we want to optimize the whole. You don't want to optimize one part of the system at the expense of another part of the system, okay? We want to empower the team, not just in lip service only. Truly empower the team. If you say a team is autonomous, leave them. You will go to some environments, they will say they are doing agile, the team is autonomous. Every minute they are coming, when will it be ready? When will it be ready? Is it not ready yet? I can see the chart is not moving. Hey, come on. You will experience that, okay? But when you experience that kind of thing where, you know, they are trying to come and micromanage the team, educate them. Educate them to say, you know what, this is a focus period for the team. If you keep coming asking 1,000,001 questions about how many, you know, when this will be ready, it will be ready. That is why you have the sprint review. Remind them that, you know, it's only a 2-week sprint and we have a sprint review. At the review, you will see what we have done, okay? You will see, encourage them that that is what the sprint review is for. Attend our sprint review so that you can see what is being delivered, okay? Now, when we talk about deferring commitment, it is about avoiding analysis paralysis, but at the same time, not running with the first thing you think about. That is what that is. Okay, we've thought about doing it this way, but let's think about maybe 1 or 2 more, but not engage in analysis paralysis and not necessarily running with the first one. It's about considering a few options and then going for the option that best meets the need of the organization. Because sometimes this whole idea of let's do it this way, let's do it that way, we don't want it to be imposed. And that is why we're saying, okay, let's consider this, let's consider that. Let's not engage in analysis paralysis, but let's consider a few and then go for the best options. And this is how we want to engage as a team. And of course, amplified learning is about the quick feedback loop, okay? And if you remember, when I use the key, the car key and the house key, we want, the longer it takes, the more difficult and the more expensive it becomes to rectify these problems. So when we talk about amplifying learning, when we are putting our pipeline together, we want to make sure we put checks and balances in place that will help us to learn very quickly when something has gone wrong. And then it talks here, the fundamental philosophy of Lean is about recognizing activities you and your organization perform to add value, the product or service you produce and which ones do not, the ones that add value and the ones that do not add value, okay? So we want to identify value. How do we identify value? We map the value stream. Value stream means, and when you want to engage in a value stream exercise, you involve everybody that works in that value stream. Everybody that, you know, does something in that value stream must be present, okay? So we are now questioning each other, okay, well, how do we do this? Okay, this one is saying when we do this, we do that. When we do this, we do that. We are documenting it and we are trying to follow the process that is being followed in reality so that we can see how efficient or inefficient this process is, okay? So in order for us to identify value, we must map it, physically map it, okay? Just like that diagram that I showed you, we mix the flour, then we add the egg, then we add the sugar. You physically map it and through conversations going on amongst the team members. And then you now enhance it to create flow, to create a lean flow. You enhance it, okay? You enhance it for flow by removing the processes that do not add value. Maybe you want to merge some processes, whatever you need to do based on that context. And the one thing you need to realize as a Scrum Master is that what you need to do when this is happening is to facilitate the process. When something like this is going on, educate people on what needs to be done, why it needs to be done, and the outcome we expect to achieve from it. One of the team members may well be the one at the board. It doesn't have to be you, the Scrum Master, that is at the board. You are a facilitator. It doesn't have to be you at the board. You can say, so who is going to volunteer to map the process? because they are the ones that understand the process, not you. So you ask for a volunteer who is going to get to the board to start mapping the process, and they can share it amongst themselves. So they start talking. One person starts saying, this is what we do first. And when we finish doing that, we then push it to the GitHub. When we push it to the GitHub, we run this program, we run that program, whatever. Let them map it. It's their job, it's their environment. Okay? And then it says establish pool. Now, this is where I want to go back to the Ford and Toyota example. Establish pool. There is pull and there is push, okay? In a production system, if I go back to the Toyota example, Toyota could not afford to push, okay? They could not afford to push their products to people because they didn't have the privilege that Ford had. Ford could afford to, produce 1 million cars and just pack it everywhere and, people and start selling. Toyota didn't have that privilege. So Toyota had to think of their value stream in terms of establishing a pool system because they don't have the luxury of the space that the Americans have. So even in software development, we are also saying, let us use that thinking, okay? So by doing pool, what we are now doing is we are only working on the things that add the most value. We are not just developing features, bang, 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 pushing it out there and hope that people will use it. No. That's why we're working on feedback. So that same technique that was used in Toyota is now being adopted in the software industry. Because like I have asked everybody before, how much of the features in a Word document do you use? I don't think I use up to 20%. Because you see, all those things were developed in a push system. Just develop it, I'm sure they will like it, I'm sure they will use it. If you develop like that today, you will run out of business. You know why you will run out of business? You will run out of business because you are spending your developers' time to work on features that people may never use. That's why we call it avoid over-engineering and avoid pet features. Instead, we are working on what we know people want to use, the functionalities people are asking for, the functionalities that add value. So there's no time for just pushing anything out there. Just deliver, and push. No. What adds value? What adds value? So that is what push. That is the whole idea behind push and pull. Okay? You can't just develop stuff, push it out in the market and hope people will use it. Okay? You have to do your homework and things like that. And this is where when people are starting a journey of a new product or service, this is where focus groups also comes in. Focus group and when you're, in fact, I'm going to make sure I teach you people innovation games before we wrap up. Innovation games is to do with, because you may need to facilitate things like that. Imagine working with a healthcare sector and they want to come up with a new thing and they want to run a focus group. Do not be surprised if as a Scrum Master in that environment, they call you to come and facilitate it. So I will tell you what innovation games are all about and how to facilitate those kind of sessions, okay? Easy. So it's about facilitating those meetings to gather some information of what customers want, and then we now iterate on it. By iterating on it, we now keep inspecting and adapting based on the needs of the customer. And then seek perfection, it says. We cannot just say, oh, we've done it, we are there. We are never there. Be it for your products, be it for your services, be it for your own development, we are never there. Yesterday, I was in like 5 webinars. There can never be a point where I feel, oh, I'm a fantastic coach. No, I'm a learner too. I may have more experience than the people I'm teaching, fine. But I'm also a learner. You can never get to a point where you feel, oh, I'm done. No way. It's a continuous process. So we keep seeking perfection. So that's why I said, you people, you have all entered one chance. You have entered one chance. You have entered one chance because this journey is a never-ending journey. You have entered one chance. So, but it's an interesting one chance, I hope. An interesting one, I hope. So now let's look a little closer at the waste. There are 8 types of waste when we talk about lean. Defects, overproduction, like I said before, waiting is a waste. Not utilizing talent is a waste. Unnecessary transportation is waste. Unnecessary inventory, we just talked about push and pull, Toyota and Ford. Unnecessary inventory. Toyota tries to minimize their inventory with their just-in-time management and inventory system and their pull system. Unnecessary movement is waste, although you might also say it's exercise. Extra processing, putting the bells and whistles that people will not use is waste. Okay? Focus on functionality. Focus on features that add value. Okay? Let's look at that from a software perspective. Now, I talked about WIP limit. I don't know if I've talked about WIP limit briefly, but we're going to look at WIP limit in a little more detail when we look at Kanban. Kanban, just one session, we will learn Kanban in just one session. It's very easy. Now, there's a myth, or should I say it is a myth, that we can multitask. Apparently, it is a myth. Human beings cannot multitask. Okay, so in my kitchen now, I could be cooking jollof rice. I could have the washing in the machine. Fair enough. But the point is, well, I already have the jollof rice, on the fire, and maybe I just put the low heat and I know that I don't have to touch it for the next 1 hour. The washing, if I put it in the machine, I switch it on, it washes for the next 1.5 hours. I'm not engaging with it frequently, okay? So maybe at that level, you can call that multitasking, fine, okay? And maybe as that is going on, I'm busy writing something on my computer, fine. But when we start talking about a digital environment like this, where we are saying, you are working on this small program, you are working on this one, and you are switching between them, it's called task switching. And it's actually not productive, apparently. It is apparently not productive. That is why we say our stories should be small. That is why we say we should, as much as possible, minimize the WIP limit. The WIP limit is the number of things you are working on at the same time. As much as possible, we want to finish things before we start another one. That's why I said the other day, stop starting, start finishing. WIP limit is about stop starting, start finishing. The ones that we have started, let us get them to done. Let us get them to done. So task switching is waste, because I'm working on this thing. How many times have you been busy working on something and then someone comes to interrupt you and then you talk to them for like 10 minutes, okay? That means you have moved away from what you were doing. Now you are talking to somebody, fine. And then when the person now leaves you, you come back to what you are doing, and it takes you like 5 minutes to get back into flow. It takes you like a few minutes to even say, okay, where was I, by the way? What was I even doing before this interruption came? How many of us have been in that position? We've all been there. Mm-hmm. We've all been there. So that is the task switching going on. You lose focus, you lose concentration. It takes you time to get back into it. All that time is waste. Partially done work is waste. Why? Because you have to come back and do it. So it is better to try and do things and do it properly and know it is done, okay? And this is also where technical debt comes in. When you just do something, let me just quickly cut corner, the review is tomorrow. And then you cut corner, and then you think you will go back and fix that problem, you forget. And not only because you forget, because there's pressure for the next thing you need to build. There's pressure. So because of that pressure, you have forgotten that technical debt you created the last sprint. Then before you know it, you create another technical debt and then another one. So we can't afford to cut corners in this environment because it will create an impediment later. Motion, we talked about motion. Motion could mean that, okay, and this is where the co-location comes in. Let us have a team that sits together so that we minimize, Angela is on the 7th floor, and Ronke is in the basement, and Grace Shaba is on the 5th floor. To communicate becomes a problem. We are going up and down. To gather information takes time. So that is where the whole idea of an agile team sitting together, being co-located, that's where that's coming from. And of course, minimize waiting. Waiting is waste. Avoid bells and whistles. Avoid extra processing. Avoid it. Avoid extra features and minimize defects. And as much as possible, we know that it is impossible to have total 100% proof where there's no defect. We know it's impossible. There will always be defects here and there. There will always be bugs, but put a pipeline in place that helps you capture those defects as quickly as possible, so that defect, that bug, does not propagate down your pipeline, okay? So talking about waste, there are different types of waste. They sound like people's names. Muda is Japanese, Muda, Mura, and Muri. These are forms of waste from a lean perspective. Muri is unreasonable burden on people or machine. Unreasonable burden on people or machine. So take, for example, going back to our bakery example, we had a machine that could give us 200 cakes. In a busy bakery, that means we will overuse that machine, okay? As we are finishing one batch, we are starting another one, and before we know it, that machine may break. And that is why we have to look at, okay, how much pressure are we putting on this machine? Do we need extra machine? Things like that. Also, people, are you putting too much burden on one person? In as much as we want to use full capacity, you don't want people to burn out. Because you see, when people burn out, it's going to create a huge impediment. So it is better to use people in a way that creates predictability, in a way that creates a sustainable pace. Because we are human beings. If you overuse us, we will break down. And that is why Agile does not promote weekend working at all. So as a Scrum Master, when they now start saying, we are looking for a sustainable pace, what we can deliver Monday to Friday for 2 weeks is okay. Let us keep our engagements into that framework that has been given to us, that we are working by, okay? So as much as possible, the Agile mindset is that what we do from 9 to 5 is okay. I mean, of course, that is changing now, because now most of us are working from home. So that whole mindset will change, but let's still talk about it in that regard. We want a sustainable pace. We don't want people to burn out. So now, people working from home, they have to now find their pace. The onus is now on you to find your pace so that you don't burn out. Because what a lot of people will tell you in the current COVID situation is that I'm actually putting in more hours, and that is true. And in a way, you have to just pace yourself to know that you are working at your peak times. Because for me, personally, I believe that being in the office 9 to 5 was never really the most productive thing for us to do, because there is no way as a human being you can say, okay, I'm productive between 9 and 5. It doesn't work like that. There will be times when you are not productive. There will be times maybe you even want to nap for 1 hour. You want to nap for 30 minutes. So because we are working from home, I want to believe that gives us the power and the choice to actually use those hours to our advantage, but at the same time, give the hours we are paid for. And most of the time, one thing you will find out is people are actually giving more hours than they are paid for. But the most important thing is that you are in control, and you should know how to pace yourself so that you don't burn out, because now you are not in the office 9 to 5. You are working in your own home. So Muri, unreasonable burden on people or machine. Mura, workload not balanced, okay? There's more to one person than the other. So we are trying to look for an environment where things are, not tilted too much, where one person is overutilized and one other person is underutilized. So you want to look out for Mura. And then there's Muda, any form of waste in your process. Waiting, any form of waste, materials, that is Muda. So we are looking, are we wasting materials? Are we wasting people? Is there too much, workload on one person and very little on the other person? You want to also look out for that. And the teams will contribute to ensuring that this is not the case. So you want to make sure these kind of conversations are going on if there's need for this kind of conversation. And then let's look at the DevOps components, terminology, objectives, and principles. So of course, DevOps, Agile, IDE. What is IDE? Integrated Development Environment. That is what IDE stands for. An integrated development environment. We will elaborate on it as we go along. Microservices, we already talked about microservices. Microservices is about modular approach to development so that things are not tightly coupled. So for example, the LBU University, we want to make sure that the payment system stands on its own so that we can reuse it somewhere else, okay? decoupling. It's about decoupling. It's about avoiding tight coupling of our functionalities or services, if you like, okay? Provisioning. Now we're talking about Amazon Web Services. We're talking about cloud. Google has cloud services. Amazon has cloud services. There are so many out there, but of course, Google and Amazon are the most popular, okay? And Microsoft, those three are the most popular. So when we talk about provisioning, provisioning is about getting environments ready. Now that has been made so easy because it's just about, configuration. You don't have to physically have a server on your premises anymore. So what you need can then be provisioned for you. Okay, this is about procurement now. Oh, I want this, I want that. And through configuration, this can be done. And through self-service, certain things can be configured. And then we have Git and GitHub. Git is a repository where every developer, as they are developing code, they will push it into that repository. I develop a line of code for payment, I push it into the repository. And at any one point in time, so many developers are working on the same functionality. So I'm developing something, you are also developing something, but everything we are developing must work together. It's like you're manufacturing a bicycle. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, you are doing that. At the end of the day, we must be able to assemble all those parts together to make a proper bicycle, to give us the bicycle, right? The same thing happens in a development environment. The same thing happens in a development environment. We are writing this code and we are pushing it into Git, the repository. Now, the GitHub is a layer on top of the Git for collaboration. GitHub is the layer on top of the Git for collaboration. So it is in the GitHub that I can see that, Tunde just pushing that code. I can see Mary just put that. I can see Sylvia just put that. That is the social space. The GitHub is the social space where we are coordinating our work and it works together like that, okay? GitHub, okay? Continuous delivery. As we are developing our code, we are pushing it. It is being unit tested. All the things that needs to happen is happening, and this code is moving down the pipeline for delivery, okay? Because remember, we are working in units now. We are not writing huge codes anymore, okay? Continuous delivery and continuous integration, okay? We are constantly integrating our codes together, and we integrate soon and frequently. We integrate frequently. Because if you remember, when we talked about the agile release train, when everybody in that train, at the end of the 2 weeks, they must integrate. Remember, there's the 3 months integration cycle, but every 2 weeks we are integrating, okay? But in a DevOps environment, they are not even waiting for 2 weeks to integrate. This is the point now. They are not even waiting for 2 weeks. They are integrating almost continuously. That's why we call it continuous integration. They are integrating God knows how many times a day, because if I wait too long before I integrate, it might create problems. And if there's an error with my code, then that means we need to undo so many things, okay? That is why we need that continuous integration, okay? And of course, this is an environment of configuration management. They have so made it so easy. You are sitting in your office and you subscribe to something. Even the people who need to do it is just about changing, they've already pre-programmed this thing that sometimes you just have to choose the configuration you want. It has been made so easy. So you can start a big business today without having to worry about server. I'm not even just talking about small business, a big business that can just kick off very quickly because all their provisioning is done in the cloud and it's done through configuration management. Easy. It's so different from what used to happen. So different. So the main objective of DevOps is to improve the collaboration, communication, and processes between the different roles in software development and to enhance the speed of software delivery. And of course, we know Agile is an iterative development approach to speed up time to market. So as you can see, DevOps and Agile are working together. We are working fast. Remember, Agile solved the first problem. DevOps has come to solve the second wall of confusion, okay? So these two work hand in hand. I've talked about Microsoft services. It's about loose coupling. It's a service-oriented architecture. It is saying we are service-oriented. If we need to develop a new service, we are up and going because we have modularized our services. Our services are not tightly coupled with other things. We now have to shut down and no. we can take this service and go and use it somewhere else, okay? So that is what microservices is all about. It's all about lightweight protocols. It's all about modularity, okay? And the key benefit is reusability. Reusability, okay? Composite applications are made of small, communicating with each other through APIs. And how does this happen? It happens through APIs. APIs means application program interface. So take, for example, PayPal. PayPal is a microservice. So if Dele wants to now start selling something online, all Dele needs to do is call PayPal, open an account with PayPal. They will now say, have you developed your website? She says, yes. They will now give her what we call an API. That API, she will give it to her developer. Somehow, the developer will get the API. The developer will now run the PayPal API on that website so that the microservice for payment, which is PayPal, can be integrated to Dele's website. That is how it works. That is how it works. Okay. So I'm opening an account soon now with PayPal so that I can also be using PayPal. That is what they're going to do. They're going to give me an API. I will then make sure my developer gets that API. And that's it. Bob's your uncle. I can start using PayPal. It will now be integrated onto my page. So that's what that is all about. And this is just to reinforce the fact that you can have a monolithic architecture, which is not service-oriented, or a microservice architecture. This one is better. As you can see, what is inside this data access layer has been separated into 4. So what was in here before was all of these things combined. That is what this is. All of this combined is what we have in here. So imagine you need something in here. It's a mess. It's too messy. But when you break it down like this, you can just say, oh, I need this microservice. I need to go and use it there. I need this one. I need to go and use it there. It makes life easy. Okay? And this is just to use an example for the LBU Pay. So let us assume we have LBU Pay. That LBU Pay can be a microservice architecture, in which case, if we wanted to do something for Spain, we can reuse it for Spain because we already have it and it's loosely coupled. It's not tightly coupled with the UK LBU website. It is loosely coupled. And since it is the same organization, we can say, okay, we need it for LBU Spain. We just reuse it. So that is one of the benefits, right? Reusability. So talk about server provisioning. What does that mean? It is about setting up a server to use in your network. Setting up a server for using your network. It may be installing something, it may be hardware, it may be software, it can be your network, it can be anything. Anything, server provisioning, okay? And it is now done in a way that it's all about configuration. It says here it may refer to assigning an already configured server to a particular customer. So we have a server that is ready. So what does this mean? There's a server in Iceland somewhere. They have provisioned the server. They have compartmentalized it. That server, Merilanian's business is on that server. Dele's business is on that server. Franca's business is on that server. They are the ones hosting us. So they can give me a portion of that server, give another portion to Dele, give another. That's what provisioning is all about, okay? That's what provisioning is all about, okay? And we call it a virtualized and instantiated on request. It is virtualized and instantiated on request. You don't have to wait so long to have these things. It's already, it's pay as you go. It's already configured. So it's like saying you want to pay for Jira. There are different packages to pay for Jira. Just like even this quick scrum, there were different packages. You go for a particular option, you pay for it. Bob's your uncle, you are up and about. It's instant. The moment you pay for Jira, within a short few minutes, you have access to Jira. That is what is happening here, okay? So in general, provisioning means providing or making something available. It could be storage, it could be software, it could be product, it could be service. Remember, infrastructure as a service, software as a service, platform as a service, and it goes on and on, okay? So provisioning is made so easy because it's all about programming now. Now, talking about an integrated development environment, it is a software application that provides comprehensive facilities to computer programmers for software development. It is an application. If you look at this developer in front of us here, you can see there are 3 screens in front of the developer. Most of the time, when you go to a typical development environment, you will see them with like 2 or 3 screens. I guess it just works for them for all the things that they have to use. So what they have in front of them is an integrated development environment. An IDE normally consists of at least a source code, a source code editor, build automation tools, and a debugger. Okay, so this developer here could be doing something on one screen and looking at the output on another screen, depending on how they want to work. Okay, Microsoft Visual Studio, for example, is an IDE. Now, what is happening in an IDE environment? The developer is developing and testing. They are developing and testing. But you see, their environment must be kept in sync. Their environment must be kept in sync. And that is why we always have that problem where a developer will say, but it worked in my environment. Okay, worked in your environment, but the actual environment that this thing is going to end up in has changed. So you must always make sure that the IDE is in sync with the reality of the production environment, okay? And you will have multiple IDEs. So you can have 3 or 4 developers, you can have 10 developers doing the same, with the same environment, but their environment must be the same. Otherwise, we will start having issues here and there, or errors here and there. Oh, it compiled here, it ran on my IDE, but why is it not running on my IDE? It's not running on your own because something is out of sync, okay? So these environments must be brought up to date together, okay? And when next we talk about DevOps, we are now going to start looking at, we are now moving close to the Git and the GitHub part of our training. For each of these developer 1, 2, and 3, once they develop that piece of code, they push it into Git. They develop another piece of code, they test it, they push it into Git. And then once they push it into Git, the journey now starts. The journey starts from their IDE. The journey down the pipeline now starts. But this is where it starts. The developer in front of their laptop writing a piece of code and pushing it into Git. And that journey through the pipeline starts. Based on every organization will be different. No 2 pipeline will be the same, okay? What we want to achieve for our organization, the way we want to engineer our pipeline might be different from the way another organization would engineer their pipeline. But it's a pipeline nonetheless, and our code moves down that pipeline. And as much as possible, we want to detect any bug. We don't want it to travel far down into our pipeline. So all these developers are pushing. They are pushing their code and pulling at the same time. So I come to work in the morning, I'm a developer. For me to start doing anything, I have to pull the code. And this is where we now start talking about master and branch. Master, all this, I'm saying all these things because this is what you will hear when you go out there. This is where you now start hearing, oh, I pulled the branch. I'm working on a branch. Another person will say, I'm working on a branch, but there's a master. There's a master. So at the end of the day, we must now push the branch back to the master to update the master, okay? To update the master. So let me give a good example. Imagine we are writing a document together. We have written the document. The document is version 10, okay? The document is wherever it is, they've saved it in a particular place. I now feel I need to change something in chapter 9, okay? I now take a copy. Pulling means I'm taking a copy. That is what pulling means. So I feel I need to change something in chapter 9. I'm developer 1. I pull chapter 9, okay? I pull it to make the change. Maybe we sent it out to somebody and they came back with some review. Now I pulled it, I'm making a change to chapter 9. The fact that I have pulled chapter 9 means I have a branch. I have branched it to me. So I'm working on a branch, and that branch is chapter 9. So maybe there's something else to do with the current chapter. Somebody else is working on another branch. So which means by the end of the day, I must push. Now remember, I pulled. Now I must push that chapter back to the master. Does that make sense? I must push that chapter back to the master. Remember, we have a master of chapter 1, 2, 3, like that. I must push it back, the updated version back. But guess what? The pipeline itself, the various components of the pipeline, they are configured in such a way that it's just like when you are using Jira or when you are using even Quick Scrum. There's an activity log. There is an activity log. It will show that at 7:07 this morning, Mary pulled chapter 9. It will be documented. And at 9:08, she pushed chapter 9 back. So I branched out something by pulling. I've done my update, I've pushed it back. So you will hear this terminology. You will hear about master, and as much as possible, I hope the example I've just used to explain that makes sense. You pull out, that means you have a branch. And then we push back to the trunk, because now we're talking about the master. The master is like a trunk, and we talk about branches, and we need to push them back. So you will definitely hear all this terminology: trunk, branch, master, push, pull. Okay. Franca, can you add anything to that?
Yeah, sure.
Please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's a very it's a very effective thing, because that way you don't get in your repository, you can see who has done what and what, so no one can deny responsibility for what they have done. And that is why it's always advisable to not let anybody use your logon to do anything. So you have to use your own logon, and so it's kept and it can be tracked. And then for audit purposes, it's extremely important.
Audit, for
Yeah.
audit, yes.
Yeah,
For audit purposes, yes.
Yes,
Because don't forget, there's IT audit too, especially in Franca's environment.
yeah. And don't forget, I'm also in a CISA, you understand? So
yeah, there's it's financial environments are very strict when it comes to audit. So there you go. That's why everybody has their logo. Okay, that's why everybody has their logo, because there's tracking. And then when things go wrong, we know it is you, but we will come and help you if you need help. So it's not a case about throwing somebody under the bus. That's not the purpose of that. But we know immediately it was Mary's code that broke the build. It was Dele's code that broke the build. We can quickly fix things. And at that point, we make sure things are fixed before we continue. Remember, we don't want to propagate these things down the pipeline. We make sure things are fixed before we continue. This is where we're going to stop today. Any questions?
And Barry, don't forget also, if possible, I mean, if it's not relevant, it can be rolled back to the last version.
Of course. Yes, it can be rolled back. That's the whole point of the activity log as well. And that is also, these softwares are very powerful. All these components, they are so powerful, and they've really worked on, they've really enhanced them. So you can always roll back. Thank you for reminding me. You can roll back. Okay, this thing that I did is even wrong, sir. That's not what they wanted. We'll now roll it back to the previous state. We will undo, just like you have redo and undo on your what do you call it now, on your Word document, on your Word processor. You undo something, you redo it. We all do that all the time when we are writing a document. You think, oh, that's not what I wanted actually. Then you undo it or you redo it. Instead of physically doing it again, you just redo it. So you can undo, you can redo. So that also happens in this DevOps environment. Okay. Any questions, please? Any questions, any concerns, anything at all, please? Like I always say, no silly questions at all. Was this clear? I'm trying to go in stages. Going back to the beginning of DevOps, where we are now, is the whole concept of DevOps. Is it making sense? Because like I said, you don't need to be a DevOps engineer. But I don't want you as a Scrum Master to go to a DevOps engineer and a DevOps environment, Agile DevOps environment, and they are saying branch and master, and you are like, what are they talking about? That's the whole point here. When they start talking about push and pull, you get it. When they start talking about chaos monkeys, you get it. When they are talking about microservices, you know what they mean. That is the whole point. When they say, oh, they need to provision a server, GitHub, you know what it means, okay? And of course, all these sessions are recorded. You can go back to it. Any questions? Are we good? You can unmute yourself.
Mary, can you go back to the slide that shows all the various branches of Lean?
Lean.
Yeah.
This one?
Yeah, no, the one before that.
This one?
Yes, this one.
Okay.
Okay. So, when we talk about, what's it called? The extra processes and extra features, can you give a little bit more on those two?
Okay. I've talked about over-engineering.
Yeah.
I've talked about pet features.
Mm-hmm.
And what those two are really referring to there is that there is no need, when we investigate our value stream, we want to ask ourselves, do we really need this process? Is it really necessary? What value is it adding? Is this about bells and whistles? Those are the questions we want to ask ourselves. So what constitutes extra processing will be determined by the particular context, okay? And will be determined by the conversation that we are having as a team. We will know whether it's extra processing or it is required processing. I hope that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay, based on the conversation. It is not for you to decide as a Scrum Master that there's extra processing. It is the conversation you initiate as a Scrum Master, because what are we looking for? What is the goal? Lean. The goal is lean. The goal is efficiency. The goal is that we focus our resources on value delivery. Remember, we want to do more with less. We want to do more with less. Okay. Now, extra features is saying, let's not over-engineer this feature. Once we have demoed, they've given us, we've gone through our, remember we do our prototyping, we do our design thinking phase and all of that. If there's no need for bells and whistles, then don't bother with it. Give them what they need, okay? Avoid pet features. Sometimes, some developers are so attached to certain things that they just want to do it because they love it. No, that's not what we're looking for here. That's what we call pet features. Oh, and one particular stakeholder likes it. Does it add value to the customer? Do you understand? It's about what the customer wants. It's not about unnecessary extra features. So that's why we are always constantly talking to the customer to make sure that we are working on the features that add values, not unnecessary extra features, not about bells and whistles. Does that answer your question, Franca?
Yes, it does. No, I'm just thinking because I have similar situations, you know,
Okay.
in my world, there's always something emerging.
Okay.
Certain features are like considered extra. That's not necessarily used. Maybe you use once in 2 years, but they are required to be there because maybe regulations or certain things.
I agree with the regulation part. Okay, maybe it doesn't add the most value, but guess what? It may not add value to the customer, but it may result in a fine.
Fine, yes, if it's not there, that's what I'm saying.
It's not there, so it's important.
Yeah, so it becomes important because if it's not there, you could risk you could even risk your trading
or your license or something. Yeah. So I wouldn't consider that under the category of extra features. That is mandated. That is necessary. Mm-hmm. It's like saying GDPR, for example.
Yeah.
You must do it. You must comply. So what constitute extra features will be things like, they don't really add value, but this is where your Moscow comes in.
Yeah.
This is where your Moscow comes in. Must have, should have, could have, won't have for now. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
I mean, based on my experience, what I've also noticed is like those things are like they are because I've seen a situation where it's kind of like led to like a technical debt, so that's not being used all the time. We'll do that at a later time, and then it got forgotten, and after
exactly.
Yeah. So it's all those features that, okay, they're not being used right now. We don't really need them, but whatever. But it can then becomes like a technical debt because we are not prioritizing it at that point in time.
Yes, yes.
And it's something that really needs to be looked out for.
Which is why you want to really prioritize things properly from the beginning.
Yeah.
What are the must-haves? What are the should-haves? That's why it's important, because remember, there's no organization that has unlimited resources. None. Resources are always limited. And one of the things Agile and Lean is trying to achieve during this sprint cycle is to say, look, this is our 2 weeks sprint. We want to focus on what is important, what adds value. That's why we have the product owner prioritizing the backlog, okay? Because no organization has unlimited resources, none. Even the richest organizations want to save money, right? They want to save money. Okay, any other questions, please? Are we clear with what we've covered today? We've looked at Lean, we've looked at how DevOps picks up where Agile stops. We've looked at the waste. We've looked at Muri, Muda, and Mura, wasting of people, wasting materials, uneven distribution of workload, inefficient use of machine and people. These are all Lean stuff. Okay, we've talked about the concept of Toyota, pulling instead of pushing. We've looked at the Git and the IDE environment and how each environment must be similar. Otherwise, if they are not, upgraded at the same time, if the environments are not, in sync, you will have problems. Okay. So this is where we're going to stop if we're okay.
Quick one, Mary.
Yeah.
Okay. When we talk about the agile being like, okay, or people, the expectation is that is whatever you can fit in between Monday to Friday, which is the correct mindset. But there are environments whereby you actually need to do the weekend because of regulations or because of the way the environments are set up or because of the availability of the platform. So it's always like, okay, because we practice Agile and Scrum, and as you know, so sometimes we definitely know that certain releases you have to do it over the weekend.
Over the weekend. I mean, every organization is different, but we still have to communicate the need for a consistent pace. And I would imagine that if we have an operations team, I mean, I used to work as a DBA. If we have an operations team and somebody needs to work at the weekends, there must have been some off day during the week for that person. Do you see where I'm coming from? I would imagine that kind of mindset is what is in place, because I should not be expected to work Monday to Sunday every week. I will burn out. People will burn out. So in those environments where we call them high availability environment, that's what we call them.
Yeah.
High availability environment, where it is 24 hours. There's no shaking about it. It is 24 hours because it's high availability. But in that kind of environment, they will have a rota system. They should have a rota system of how that operations aspect of things, because that is operations, not development.
Yeah.
That is operations. So, but now we're talking about, if we're talking about development, but if we're now talking about DevOps, that now includes operations. So the thinking of, okay, how do we organize our team to avoid burnout? It will be different from organization to organization. It will be different, but I don't expect people to just keep working all the hours God sent.
Even
your
body will protest.
Exactly, your body will, revolt. So people will burn out. So all of these things are what you take into consideration. So in as much as I said we're looking for predictability and consistent pace, yes, in development, in strictly development environment. But when we now start having our operations and development together, we know operations is 24/7. We know that somebody has to man it. There's a lot of automation going on now to avoid that. I hope you know that. But when it now comes to releases, come on, somebody needs to be present. If the release has to be done because of the nature of the work, they can't interfere with the production environment or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but they now have to come together to figure out what will work for them, so that people don't burn out. Because when people burn out, then you create a serious impediment for yourselves. Anyone else? Let me stop sharing. Are we good? Anyone has a question? Are we good? Yes, no?
Yes, I am. I can talk for myself.
Mr. T, Ndudi, is it clear?
It could be better.
Yeah.
So tell me what could be better.
The terminologies for me.
The terminology for many, yeah.
And well, you are hearing most of them today. By the time you watch the video again and again, you are hearing them for the first time.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I talked about the ID, integrated development environment. It's just the software that the developer is working with. Okay, and an integrated. We talked about the GitHub. The GitHub is a repository. It's like saying you've created a space. You've created a space where everybody should push their code. Yes. And you don't have to worry about how that code is saved, because the Git is a software. It will tag what you have put. It will put your name on it. Because everybody has a login code. So if I push something, they know it is Marilanian that pushed it in. If Doddy pushes something into the repository, we know it is Doddy that pushed it. Okay. So this is an environment where we are pushing all our code. Okay. And the GitHub. Yeah.
In all of this, what will be the role of the Scrum Master in all of these? Because that's what I'm really keen on.
First of all, is to understand those terminology. You have come into this environment. They are talking about push and pull. Because you understand it, you can join in the conversation. You are not an engineer. I already said that.
Yeah.
You are not an engineer. But these conversations, they will be having this conversation during their sprint planning. They will be having these conversations during their backlog refinement. Are you with me?
Yeah.
So having these conversations during any other meeting they may have set up for whatever reason.
Okay.
Because you are familiar with what they are saying, you can possibly add value. And it makes sense to you if they have issues.
Okay.
Are you with me? That is where your role comes in. So you don't want to be a scrum master in this environment where you are wondering what the hell is push, what the hell is pull, what the hell is Git, what the hell is GitHub. Are you with me? So when these conversations are going on, you know what they are saying, and you can possibly add value.
I had that experience.
Then you sound confident too in your communications. Yeah, that's very important to me. Yeah.
Very important that you know what is going on. Grace, let us hear your contributions.
Yes, because I had that experience whereby most of the terminologies were totally unfamiliar to me. And it just makes you feel inadequate.
Yes.
You're hearing all these things and you're wondering, what did they just talk about? And they know, they can feel it as well. So it undermines you.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's very important that we know, and it's very, very important. It just gives you more confidence. It just makes you look more competent. You're not an engineer, you're not a developer, but you know what it is they're talking about.
Yes.
And yeah, so that's
you,
my experience.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And I like the fact that Dodi talked about, you know what, it will make me feel confident, and Grace has just confirmed that also. When they are saying all those things, I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? It will show on you. You may not know it, but it will show on you. But if you know what they are talking about and you are nodding, even if you are not saying something, somebody says something and you go, yeah, that's right. You know, even that too is enough. Even that too is enough. Okay. And then you may be able to add value. For example, you can say how quickly, you can say things like, or ask questions like, how quickly are we alerted to our defects? Yeah. You can ask questions like that. How quickly are we alerted to our defects? What are you trying to make sure that the defects are not traveling down too far the pipeline? You understand? Things like that. When we talk about technical debt, you come into a team as a Scrum Master. One of the questions you want to find out is, what is the situation of our technical debt? What is the situation of our technical debt? Are we paying attention to our technical debt? It is like coming into a company as an accountant and they have eaten basic left, right, and center. And then you say, what is the situation of our debt? What's our financial situation? Who are we owing? Are we servicing that debt? It's exactly the same. If you are owing, if that company you have just joined is owing money, they owe money, they have debts, and they are not servicing that debt. You know as an accountant that this debt is going to get out of control. The same goes for technical debt. We are pushing out code, but we are not pushing out tidy code. So you want to come in there and say, so what's the situation of our technical debt? Are we paying attention to it? Okay? That is the purpose of the extra effort of covering all these parts. So you go in there looking really competent. So you go in there knowing everything they are talking about. There are no surprises for you. That's not to say there may not be the odd one or two things that you'll be like, I haven't heard this one, probably. And then you quickly go and research it. Thank God for Google. Go and Google it and learn quickly. Okay? So Mr. T, Undudi, don't worry. It will become, Undudi, I remember when you started, you were like, Miriam, I've never been in project management environment. I said, don't worry. Look at the review. Exactly.
One thing I do, which I've done always done, is every time I've gone into an interview, I've come out, and as soon as I get into the car, the first thing I do is bring out my pen and paper and then write out all the questions that, as much as you could remember, do it on the spot. Even like when the ones I've taken train, as soon as I got on the train, that's what I do, write out all the questions. So over the years, what I did was, especially with testing, you know, when I was running the free testing session, I between myself and my friend Mabala, we compiled a long list of testing interview questions because we just made it a point, and that's what we were using to like train people when they go for interview, just doing free mentoring and whatever. So anytime you go for an interview, make notes of those things. And because you've been asked at interview and you have to go and revise them, they will stick in your memory. It will definitely stick in your memory.
And talking about pen and paper, I always tell people your memory will fail you. But pen and paper will never fail you. So even as a Scrum Master, starting your job on the first day, as they are taking you around, saying this is this is that, make sure you have a pen and paper with you. Write things down there and then in front of them. Write it down, because by the time 30 minutes later you get to your desk, you have forgotten half of it.
Oh yes.
So write, especially at this our age. So write.
Like me.
So get your pen and paper. Write things down. At the end of the day, reflect on what has happened at the end of the day. Okay, and see where you could have done better. Even at this stage, I still do that. You will never catch me without a pen and paper. Never. I have jotters everywhere. So yeah, if things will become more familiar, don't worry. Do not worry. Do not worry. Things will get more familiar. Yeah, Mobola, how are you? Good to have you here.
Thank you. I'm well.
Good.
Hello, Mobola.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I'm the quiet one. I'm just listening.
And did you see the video that I sent?
Which one?
I sent the video for